The Galactic Arms Exhibition on Nexus Prime was the universe's premier showcase of military technology. Representatives from hundreds of species displayed their most advanced weaponry, from the Kethmoran plasma rifles that could melt through battleship hulls to the Vortanian gravity bombs capable of collapsing small moons. At Booth 247, tucked between displays of antimatter cannons and quantum disruptors, sat Lieutenant Colonel Frank Mitchell with what appear to be museum pieces: an M4 carbine, a Glock pistol, and a combat knife. The mockery began almost immediately. "Is this some sort of joke?" wheezed Overlord Zektar, a massive gastropod whose species had perfected energy weapons millennia ago. His eye stalks examined the rifle with obvious disdain. "These are chemical propulsion devices. Primitive projectile weapons." Commander Vishera of the Hegemony Fleet slithered closer, her scaled form rippling with amusement. "Do humans actually use these antiques in combat? Our basic sidearms generate more energy than your species' nuclear weapons." Mitchell remained calm, his weathered face showing no emotion as more aliens gathered around his modest display. The contrast was stark. Their sleek energy weapons hummed with power while his firearms sat silent and unassuming. "These weapons are quite old by galactic standards," Mitchell acknowledged. "The basic design is about 800 Earth years old." The crowd of alien military officials burst into various forms of laughter. Chittering, hissing, and subsonic rumbles filled the air as species from across the galaxy shared in the amusement of humanity's backward technology. 800 years, screeched High Admiral Korth, his crystalline form refracting light as he shook with mirth. "Our ancestors were wielding plasma by then. How do you even damage modern armor with such crude implements?" "Well," Mitchell said, picking up the M4 with practiced ease, "that depends on what ammunition you're using." He ejected the magazine and showed them the cartridges inside. "These are standard 5.56 NATO rounds, designed for soft targets and light armor." The aliens leaned in, their mockery intensifying as they examined the small metal projectiles. But Mitchell continued, swapping magazines with fluid precision. "When we remove certain restrictions." He held up the new magazine. "These are depleted uranium rounds with tungsten cores, traveling at 3 times standard velocity." The laughter began to die down as several military experts recognized the implications. Mitchell wasn't finished. "The sidearm uses similar principles." He drew the Glock smoothly. "Standard ammunition for law enforcement, but military applications." Another magazine swap. Armor-piercing, discarding sabot rounds with plasma-heated tips. Admiral Vishera's scales had lost their amused shimmer. "Plasma-heated? But these are kinetic weapons." "Hybrid technology," Mitchell explained. "We discovered that combining our primitive kinetic systems with energy weapons created interesting possibilities." He gestured to what appeared to be a simple combat knife. "This blade is monomolecular, held in a localized stasis field. It will cut through any known material at the molecular level." The crowd had grown silent. These weren't museum pieces. They were wolves in sheep's clothing. "The thing about human weapons," Mitchell continued, his voice carrying easily through the hushed booth, "is that we design them with multiple configurations. What you saw first were our civilian legal variants. Police versions. Training weapons with built-in limiters." He picked up a small device that looked like a simple switch. "This is what we call removing the safety. It disables power limitations, unlocks military-grade ammunition compatibility, and activates combat algorithms." The click of the switch was barely audible, but every alien in the vicinity felt the change. The weapons hadn't moved, but something fundamental had shifted. The rifle's optics glowed softly, the pistol's grip adjusted automatically to Mitchell's hand, and the knife hummed almost imperceptibly with contained energy. "You see," Mitchell explained, "humans learned long ago that the most effective weapons are the ones your enemy doesn't take seriously. We've been refining kinetic systems for over 1,000 years. When you've had that long to perfect something, you can make it do remarkable things." He demonstrated the rifle's new capabilities on the booth's testing range. The depleted uranium round didn't just penetrate the standard armor plate. It vaporized it, passed through the secondary barrier, and left a perfectly round hole in the reinforced back wall. But the real advantage, Mitchell said, as shocked aliens stared at the devastation caused by his primitive weapon, is psychological. When an enemy expects energy weapons, they prepare electromagnetic shields and heat dissipation. They don't expect a chunk of metal traveling at 4,000 meters per second to core through their defenses like they weren't even there. The demonstration ended with complete silence. Later that cycle, the human weapons booth recorded the highest number of procurement inquiries in the exhibition's history. As Mitchell packed his equipment, he smiled grimly. Sometimes the old ways were still the best ways, especially when nobody expected them to work.